right. Thank you all for coming in today. This is Making the Shift, Employee to Entrepreneur. And I just want to take 1 second here to thank all of the sponsors that have made Devox UK possible. Anybody in here that is a sponsor right now? If you are, raise your hand. Thank you. Oh, Pluralsight back there. Yay. Awesome. Yes. So who here, show of hands, is already an entrepreneur, would say they are an entrepreneur? Oh, yes. So just a few of you. So the rest of you are just thinking about it, maybe have some ideas in your head of companies that you might want to start on the side or just want to know a little bit more about it. Yeah? All right, cool. So I'm Heather Wilde. I am a CTO of a company called Rocketeer, and through that, I'm also the CTO of a couple of other projects because I'm what they call a fractional CTO. So companies that need a little help, they use my business, they use me to get them through transitional phases. I was also one of the founding members of a company called Evernote. So many of you may have that installed on your phones. And may use that. There's about 300 million people out there around the world that use us every day, so there's odds are some of you in the room that do. I also write for Inc. and Forbes and Tech.co, so I'm also responsible for a lot of spam that's on the internet, clickbait. You're welcome. And so I do know a little bit about this thing called entrepreneurship, so that's why I'm here to talk to you today. So a lot of people, when they're thinking about being an entrepreneur, they have an idea, and then they want to go and they talk to somebody, and they're like, yeah, I have this great idea, but where do I get started? And then they start talking to people, and they're like, yeah, if only somebody else will do everything for me because I have this idea. But in reality, the truth is that your idea is worth nothing. Truly, your idea alone is worth nothing. It's the execution of an idea that is worth something. So as developers, we are in a unique position because we actually can do something about these ideas. Now, do we have time to do them? Usually not, because we're so busy with our other jobs, right? With our families, with our hobbies, with things. But if we actually believe in these ideas, we actually can get stuff done. So it's a little bit better than if we were just marketers, right? So the traditional business plan is pretty easy when you break it down. You've got a problem, simple, right? Then you have a solution that you found, and then you create a business model around that. Now, what does that mean? So, okay, with Evernote, for example, we noticed that the problem was that people didn't have a way to remember the things that they did in the morning. They needed a way to jot stuff down. In our case, it was actually not just the things they did in the morning. It was the things that they did their entire life. We wanted a way to capture somebody's external brain. When you're 90 years old, we wanted you to remember what you did when you were 9 years old. And so the solution that we came up with was to create Evernote, which was a note capturing tool that you could just easily stick things in there and forget about it. And then when you wanted to look for something, you'd be able to have a natural language way to just pop it right up. Whether you're looking for an image, audio, a note that you took, a website you clipped, something, that was what we created. Now the business model around that was we created freemium service, we created a ad revenue, we created business. We created ways for people to pay for the service. So we came up with a nice way that people actually saw, investors saw, that we'd be able to make money. Now, we had to create a business plan in order to get money. But this business plan that everyone always makes you write, that's 30 pages long, and you're required to do, no one in their right mind reads. So it's unfortunate that when you are trying to go after a business, if you're trying to get a loan, if you're trying to get investment, if you're trying to do something, you do have to create a business plan. So people thought that there needs to be a better way. And Eric Ries, as part of the lean startup model, anybody familiar with Eric Ries? A few. Yeah, so in doing the lean startup, he thought there should be an easier way to do this for startups that may or may not succeed, because most businesses, about 90% of startups fail. So they shouldn't have to write 30 pages of a business plan with a business model and all these things if they're not even going to go after investment. So what he did was come up with a 6-step business plan, the things that you really just need to know. And so that is really, why are you in business in the first place? Like, really, that's your problem. That's the thing that is you're coming up with. Then who is your customer? Who's this person that you're trying to serve? Like, what's that target market? What's their journey? Where are they going to be acting inside of your company? And what's the value proposition that you offer them? And this is where a lot of people get stuck, especially developers, because the value proposition is not the thing that you think it is all the time. Like, for Evernote, like, we were so excited about this. We're your external brain. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be this tool that you use your entire life to capture all your memories. But for most users, that isn't the value proposition for them. They just want a quick note-taking tool that they can use that works. That's actually the value proposition of Evernote. It's not the thing that we created it for. It's not the thing that's in our mind as why we wanted to use it. The value proposition is what makes it valuable to the user. What is the thing that they find valuable in it at its simplest form? Then what is the business model? Just like I said, what will make you money? How will you make money? And again, a lot of people forget that when they're creating an app. Now, Airbnb, very successful, always had a business model. They always knew exactly how they were going to make money, even when they were just starting out, and they just seemed like they were like a happy, fun sharing app with homes. Lyft, Uber, they're bleeding cash like crazy. They have a business model. What is your sales process? How are you going to get people to buy it? Is it going to be something that you hand to Kim Kardashian to like show on her show and like get 1,000 people to download? Yeah, that's actually a sales process. That's a valid thing to do if you're an app today. You need to get in front of influencers. Are you an enterprise company like Pluralsight, and you have to actually have people go out to conferences or go into companies like Microsoft to get people to buy large amounts of site licenses? You have to think about what your sales process will be. And these are things that you have to sit down and plan out in the beginning before you even design your app or your business. It doesn't have to be an app. So again, the elements of your business plan can be broken down even further to what is the industry and the market feasibility? Like, is this even possible to do right now? Is there a product or service feasibility? And is it financially feasible? So while it may be technically possible to do, and there may be a market reason for it, it may not be feasible financially for you to be the one doing it. So all of these things need to be thought about before you start your endeavor, before you write that first line of code, before you go buy a land, get a lease on a building for your chip shop. Before you think about what business you want to do, you need to think all these things through on paper. And that's why a business plan is important. So here's another thing. When you think about the 5 forces model, which is another thing that you do when you're going through a business plan, you can start to think about what other things are going on in business. So obviously, when you have a competing business like Uber and Lyft, you can start to think about the rivalry they have. So for example, we've all heard about Uber's self-driving cars, right? Yeah? Well, did you know that Lyft actually is the first one to have commercialized this, and they now have self-driving cars actually in use in Las Vegas. So you can book a self-driving car now. So they beat Uber to the punch. Nobody's been hearing about Lyft's self-driving car plan because everybody's all looking at Uber. But their competitive rivalry has allowed Lyft to just jump under the radar there. And now they have 30 cars in activation in Las Vegas, and they're about to open more. But everybody's been looking at Uber. But because they have a rivalry going on, they're able to do this kind of thing. And they've been hiring each other's developers. Amazon just hired every single machine learning and neural network developer in basically the West Coast and all of the Midwest as well. So they actually have more developers for their Alexa department than Google has as a whole. And this is because there's a rivalry between Amazon and Google in this kind of area. So when you are paying attention to these things, you can also watch things like stock prices go up and down. But if you aren't paying attention, then you can be left in the cold. And this also allows you to pay attention to bargaining power. So there's a company, if you're in a restaurant business, you can know who has the better bargaining power. For example, if you're a large hotel, you're able to buy supplies a lot cheaper than a small restaurant, which could drive you out of business very quickly. So you need to know what kind of business to go in and if it's financially feasible for you. And if you are somebody that is in a... who here uses the Mixmax? Or something like that right now? No? Okay, so there's a lot of services right now that are based on tracking people's email, so to see if it's opened or closed. And all of those are going to go out of business in 20 days or so when GDPR is fully in compliance. So an entire series of businesses are based on compliance rules that can be updated and changed that are out of your control. Or if you build your business based on somebody else's API, you have the threat of that going out of business. So you have to be careful when you're building stuff. So you have to be careful, though, when you're sitting there and creating your business plan and you're thinking about it, because the longer you spend thinking about building your business, the more likely it is to fail. Because if you're just sitting there and talking about this business that I might someday build, if you're thinking about all of the stuff that could possibly go wrong, then you're not actually building it. And again, what's an idea that you haven't executed on? It's worth 0. So if you come up with a 5-year plan, that's great. But if somebody else, like Lyft, has come out with the cars in the meantime, then people are going to go to Lyft because they want to be in a self-driving car to see what it's like. And meanwhile, Uber's cars are great. They're in the news about hitting a pedestrian. Meanwhile, like, hey, I want to be in this car and see how cool it is to not hit a pedestrian. So it's interesting when you think about how companies come up with these business plans in the first place. So when you start thinking about it in a quick way, you can break things down really easy. So I'm breaking down the SpaceX business plan the way that they actually talk about it. So phase 1 was trial and error. As we know, there were a lot of errors. Phase 2, space delivery business. They're not there yet. Well, actually, they're doing some of it. So their key goals for phase 1 and phase 2 were launch something into orbit. They didn't care what. They just wanted to launch something into orbit, and that was the goal. So for phase 3, the key goal was get the ticket under 500,000. They are not there yet. But that's the goal. So once they hit that, yay! And people like Richard Branson will be able to go up into space on their competitor, because there are competitors in the market. Even NASA is a competitor to SpaceX right now. Then, eventually, after they've gotten the price down, they want to colonize Mars. And then in phase 4, they want 1 million Mars colonists. That's the SpaceX business plan. So it's really, I mean, it seems really simple when you break it down in that way, but if you put it on paper, then they know what their milestones are to hit. They don't have times associated with that because they have no idea how long it's going to take to do that. But the times are going to be associated with how much money they have left in the bank. And they can't keep raising money forever. So they're using money from other companies to try and generate that. And they're also getting government grants and things like that. But there's only so much money that you can use to try and keep launching rockets over and over. But one of the ways that they're trying to do that by necessity was to create reusable rockets, because they knew that they weren't going to get tons of money over and over again. So they knew that the rockets that they were creating had to be reusable, because out of necessity, they couldn't keep taking money, and they weren't the government with unlimited cash. So when you create this kind of a plan, things start to fall into place. And instead of creating a 30-page business plan, which they did, I mean, eventually, but initially it was just a napkin sketch. And a napkin sketch which looks basically like this, which is called a business model canvas. So who here's heard of the business model canvas before? A few of you, okay. So the business model canvas is the way that we do business plans now in Silicon Valley and in startups, where you basically just have to do a very simple thing. Let's see if this is working. Yes, a little bit. So you actually start here in the center with your value proposition, because that is the most important thing that you can think of. What are you offering to the customer? Not the name of your company, not like how awesome it's going to look on a billboard, but what is this thing that we're actually going to offer? And then, like, how are we going to reach these customers? So what channels are we going to use? So, like, are we going to use, like, social media? Are we going to use Azure? Are we going to create applications? Like, those channels are how we're going to reach the customer. And what kind of relationships are we going to build with the customers? And then what segments are we trying to reach? So who are our customers? Are they single moms? Are they college kids? Are they, like, widowed people over 55? Like, who is this customer demographic that we're trying to reach? And there can be multiple ones. So it doesn't have to be just one person. Now, how are we going to make money? Again, there can be multiple ways, and there should be multiple ways. Like, if you only have one way to make money, you're not going to make money. And then the cost structure. So this is, like, how you're going to charge. So, and this, again, should be tied to this. So, like, if you're going to be making money through ads, then, like, what are your packages that you're going to play around with? Who are your key partners? So, for example, if you want to make money through affiliate revenue, then Pluralsight would be a great one to talk to over there. And the resources that you're going to need. So Azure, for example, if you need to do machine learning, then you need to use Microsoft Machine Toolkit and things like that. TensorFlow would be a resource. And then the activities that you need to do. So filling out the activities of what you are going to be doing to get this done. So here's an example of what Airbnb looks like on a business model canvas. So for example, their value propositions for hosts and for guests, because they are a two-sided marketplace. So hosts can earn money by renting their space, and they offer insurance to house owners, which a lot of people don't think about. And they get free photo shoots for property listings. So if you decide to sell your house, you already have really nice photos taken, which a lot of people, I mean, that's how you get a house sold. And then for guests can book a homestay instead of a hotel. Who here stayed in an Airbnb? Yeah, and it was relatively nice like, I've only had one bad Airbnb experience myself. And prices are often less compared to hotels, especially during high traffic times. So the customer relationships, like you get, you can work with customer service, social media, promotional offers, and home insurance. And the channels that they work on are website and mobile apps. And then the segments. So they have hosts, people who own a house and want to earn extra money, or they just want to meet new people. And then guests, people who love to travel or want to stay somewhere cheaply. So revenue streams, commission from hosts, and then commission from guests, and then the cost structure. So here we go, the payments to freelance photographer, the setup and running costs, and then the salaries to permanent employees. And then key partners, all of these people are the partners that you use with. And then the resources are the hosts, employees, and technology, and the activities. These are all the things that you need to do to actually get started. So it's really simple to get this done once you sit there. Instead of writing a 30-page business plan that will take you a month, this will take probably a day or two. I mean, it's really a few hours just to get started, but a day or two to really get done for a business that you're thinking through. And if you spend too much time on it, it starts to look like that. So this is somebody that was really not wanting to get started on their business. They just wanted to have fun. But it looks pretty. So once you actually have that done, then you start to come up with something called an elevator pitch. And who here is familiar with the elevator pitches? All right. So many of you, if you've not given one, you've probably been on the other side of one and either been annoyed by it or you've had to do one for work. I mean, it's a lot like giving a presentation at work. But I mean, really, it's a minute speech where you have to talk about your business, your goals, your passions, the problem, the solution, how much money you want, who you want on your team. Like, you have to gain the person's attention really fast, make them really emotionally involved in you, and get the message quickly across. And you have to do all of this in a minute so that you can be, like, no matter how much pressure you are under, people actually want to buy in and be part of your business. So no pressure, none at all. Like, a lot of people, when they're talking about these things, the idea is that, like, if you are meeting somebody important in an elevator, by the time that you are hitting the next floor with them, they are, like, totally on board with you and they want to be with your company for life. So yeah, with the perfect elevator pitch, you have two parts. So the core is, like, it can't be any technical language. Like, you can't have any jargon in this at all. But the core part of it is where it's like you're inviting somebody in, you're getting them emotionally invested, and then you go into the ask. So you start to tell them, like, who you are, and like, it's the, hi, how are ya? I'm from Harvard, and, like, let's do the secret handshake. And by the way, I've got all this great company that you're totally going to want to do. So here's the sentence structure that's really super simple. You're probably going to want to take a picture of this because anyone that ever needs to do some kind of elevator pitch, it's really broken it down. So it's really simple. Like, you just start out with, like, who it's for, then who has and what they need. Your product name is and what is that benefit that it has that's unlike everybody else, and then the thing that makes you different. So an example of this that's filled in, after you get that, is, so for mobile urban citizens who have a driver's license but do not own a car, Car2Go is a car rental service in North America and Central Europe that offers per-minute car rentals, unlike Hertz, Sixt, or Avis, that service offers versatile smart 4.2 cars that customers can use and leave wherever they are. So, like, that tells you a lot really quickly. So if you were to hear that from somebody, you'd really understand what Car2Go does. Like, oh, so it's not like a car rental company because I can just go up quickly and just pick up a car. And then the question, like, it allows you to now ask a question to them, like, oh, can I use my iPhone to go up and just contact list? Do I need an app? Do I need something? Because they've told you just enough to pique your interest. They've given you the pitch that tells you just enough. There's another kind of pitch. This is actually my favorite kind of pitch and the one that I normally do for people, called the Pixar Pitch, where you start with once upon a time, then every day, one day, because of that, until finally. And here's an example of that. So once upon a time, I went to my grandmother's house, and she was making the most amazing soup. And the smell of that soup was so strong. It was so strong, and it smelled like home. And years later, after my grandmother died, every day I would think about that soup. And one day, I found the recipe, and it was in her handwriting, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of my grandmother, and I could smell it. I just looked at the card, and I could smell that. And because of that, I cooked it. And it reminded me of her. Because of that, I decided that I was going to start selling it to other people, and they thought that it was the most wonderful thing until finally I got a deal to bottle that, and now I'm selling it on Amazon for $10 a bottle, and would you like some? and every time people hear that, they can smell the soup, they can feel it, and like usually they're like, yeah, here you go. So, I mean, for that kind of thing to work, you have to have like a sensual kind of product, a tangible thing. But the person that was most excellent at doing that, of course, was the person that invented it, Steve Jobs. So any kind of Apple product, they always do the Pixar pitch for. So here's another one. Once upon a time, there was a manager working very hard to get through all their emails. Every day, they tried to find ways of getting better reports. One day, people became conscious about that fact. Because of that, they sought out ways to get more out of the hard work. And then they looked for ways to turn hindsight into foresight until finally, Astrolabe provided an environment rich with predictive indicators. So you can do it with everything. You don't have to like talk about your grandma's death to do it. But the more emotional you can get, see, they're talking about crisis here. So it has to have some kind of emotional component for this one to work. But because we are emotional people, it does. Now, when you're talking to a VC, it has to have a money component. Now, not everybody, and a VC could also be a loan officer or just somebody in general that you're talking to that you're wanting to get money from. So not everybody is going to have a business idea where they want to get money, but you always need to add in, like, our business model is this. At present, we're here, and it could be we just started, we have no traction at all. What are we looking for? Whether it's money, whether it's advisors, whatever. And this will help us to do what? So you need to be very specific in your ask when you're talking to like a VC, an investor, a loan officer, even if you're asking a mentor, like somebody that you want to be an advisor to your company, this is the kind of way to do it. Now, here is how to figure out what your market is. The total available market is how many people there are like in your entire demographic. So in one company that I work with, it's a travel company. So the total available market is theoretically every adult that is of travel, like that has a passport, because it's for international travel. So every adult in the entire world that has a passport is part of the total available market. Now, the serviceable available market is much smaller because we actually only work with the United States, so that's only a very small number of that population. And we're only within a certain age group, so that makes it even smaller. And it's only in a certain income bracket, so that makes it even smaller. So that becomes your serviceable market. And then the serviceable obtainable market, which is how many people are likely to buy. So that becomes like an even smaller percentage of that. So it just keeps getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. And you can figure that out based on available data that's out there. So then, at the end of all of these things that you've now said, because now you're still in your minute, you haven't finished your minute yet, you close your pitch with the, like, if you're interested in learning more, would you like me to come by your office? Or would you like to buy my soup? Or, or something, like, how can I get on your calendar? Like, how can we schedule something? Like, let's follow up. Because if you don't do that, if you only do a soft kind of close, like, hey, that's great, I'll see you some other time, then you will never see them again. If you give somebody your business card and then leave it at that, you will probably never hear from them again. So what you need to do is actually, like, right there, get your number in their phone, send them a message, call them, be a little pushy, because if you don't get an actual yes from somebody right there, then assume it's a no. Maybes or no's. So if you are pitching to someone and you don't get on their calendar right away, then, because think about it from the other side. If you are the person that is being pitched to, and you did not say yes right then, are they out of your head immediately? Yeah. So, to recap, basically, the things that you really need to do in order to get your idea forward are to think about defining an audience. Like, if you have this kind of idea, if you're thinking about shifting from just being an employee and you want to start your own business, which is not right for everyone, like, because you're going to have to leave a paycheck that is solid to no paycheck for a long time, then define your audience. Figure out who is out there that you want to service with your idea, and where are they located? Like, are they app users? Are they actual people on the street that are going into a store every day? Are they students somewhere? And what kinds of things do they know? Like, what's in their head? So how can you reach them? Then clarify the message that you have. So if your pitch is so long and convoluted that even you can't understand it, then it is not a good idea. That doesn't mean that there's not a germ of an idea in there that's good, but you need to get it down to its simplest element. So using the tools that I've put in here, you have the ability to get it down to a very simple format that is very clear. And then think about what is in it for the user. Again, their value proposition is the most important part of all of this. If you cannot think of what the value proposition is, and then there is no point to go forward. Again, that's not to say that you don't have a good idea, but you have to clarify what the value proposition is for the other person. And I know from my side, I've come up with a ton of things that I personally would use. And I've created them for me, and not a single other person would care. So there are so many Rube Goldberg devices out there that we've all created, I'm sure, that like pull our toast out of the toaster in the morning so that we don't burn our fingers and things like that. But they have such limited use cases, and they don't have any business models. So if you can think of something that actually services enough people to make a real business out of, then that's amazing, and go forward. Now, once you've created your pitch, then create multiple versions of it. And again, if you can only create one version of it, then it is not enough for you to go forward with. So you have to be able to talk to multiple types of people. You need to be able to explain what you're doing to, I like to say to a 3-year-old, if you can't explain your business to a 3-year-old, just like there was just a machine learning for children talk in the auditorium hall. And if we can explain machine learning to children, then machine learning is a good idea. If we can't explain things to a 3-year-old, then it's not clear enough yet. Be flexible. So when you're going to hear people tell you that your idea sucks, you're going to hear people tell you that it needs to be changed, that you're wrong, that there's all sorts of stuff that you don't want to hear. So when you're just starting out, that's the time where you actually do need to be flexible about this stuff. You need to listen, you need to take in criticism then. And then there's a point where you stop that because the idea will be solid enough. Once you have gotten it solidified, once you've gotten enough input from other people, then you can go forward again. But when you first start to work on these things, you need to take in input from other people and accept that you are not the end-all and be-all person that has decided the world is the only way that you can see it. And then when you're practicing your pitch to talk to people, just keep saying it over and over and over again until you know it backwards and forward and becomes part of you. Because if you can't explain what you are trying to get across, then no one is going to understand it. And if you can't even explain it, then no one else is going to buy in. No one else is going to help you with it. And you can't do any of this stuff alone. Like, look at what happened to Snapchat. It's 2 guys, and they've just started to dive over the edge. So there's very few people that make it all the way to the top by themselves. I can't even think of any, actually. So now, remember to smile when you're talking to people, because if you're not smiling, they think that something's really wrong. If you can't smile when you're talking about your own project, then there's some discordance there that doesn't work. So if you are happy and like really excited about the thing that you're working on, then other people will be too, and they'll feel that, and they'll want to be part of it, whether it's as an advisor, as a team member, as an investor, as a customer. So really be excited about the thing that you're working on. And if you're not, then why are you doing it? So actually be genuine. And then be engaging, which goes with being authentic, because again, if you're not engaging about the topic that you're talking to people about, then they're not going to want to be part of it. And then take your time. So I know a minute for an elevator pitch isn't very long, but that's just an artificial constraint. So you just have to be succinct. Just don't take forever when you're explaining to somebody your idea, but take your time and don't rush through what you're trying to explain. So you can explain Airbnb quickly to somebody. You can explain the iPhone quickly to somebody. Whatever you're working on, whatever you're interested in, you have a quick way to explain it, and then you can take forever with the Q&A, as long as they're interested, if they're interested. If they're not interested, don't badger them. Say goodbye. So we have some time for Q&A, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that people have, and also anyone that does ask a question, I have some copies of my book on growth hacking to make your business faster, grow faster. So any questions? Yes? No? Oh, yes.
So, for example, if your pitch failed the first time to a certain person, can you revise it go back to that person and re-pitch it? Will that work?
Absolutely. So I work with a bunch of startup accelerators, and I've heard the same person come to me with a similar pitch multiple times. And the first time they came to me, their idea was terrible. Like, it really was terrible. And the name of their company was probably the worst ever. In fact, actually, I have another story about that. But I was able to tell them that in a nice way, but firmly, and they took all that in. And then about 3 months later, they came back, and they'd made some changes, and it still wasn't great, but it was much better. And then they came back again about 6 months later, and then it was perfect, and we were able to push them through. We gave them like $50,000 in investment so that they could work it through. But that's the thing, like, being able to go forward and take critical feedback, understanding that it is like constructive, and then doing something with it, that's important. So, yeah. Yes?
How do you deal with like inconsistent feedback? So you're actually and what people are saying is great, go left, go right. How do you deal with that?
So I would take it as you'll be able to kind of create a barometer of like what is noise and what is real. So some people are just going to say, yeah, I just don't like your idea. And others will be like, this is not good. So the more you hear, the more you'll be able to say, like, okay, well, that's a terrible name. That's a terrible name. That's a terrible name is like good thing to listen to. Or I won't use that is just personal opinion. So being able to separate opinion from feedback is a very important skill to start to get. And so when, like, a lot of the times when you're hearing people give you inconsistent feedback, it's because you're hearing opinion. So yeah, it's just really start to listen to when you're hearing bias, when you're hearing opinion, when you're hearing emotion in what they're giving you. And if you can filter that out, then you'll hear the real information in there. Because maybe even in the emotional feedback that you get, like the opinion, there's also something important, because there could be some color that you're using in your app that's wrong. For example, in Evernote, once we released an app a version that we instantly had. We'd gone from 4 stars in the App Store down to 2 stars just for that app version, and our downloads were way down. And it turned out that it was because we'd changed the color scheme. So, we had no idea that, we didn't change anything else other than the color scheme. So we had to quickly release a patch to change the color scheme back. But we really liked it, but apparently it was high contrast, and people on older phones couldn't see it. So opinion is important sometimes, too. Yes? Or.
So, for example, you're working on this development plan, right? And how do you start about thinking how much should you charge for your service?
So the first thing that you should do is start looking in the market to see what it will bear in your area. So while there may be a similar service in another country, in another region, or even in your local market, you want to see what the services are that are similar to yours locally for in the same type of area. So, for example, Airbnb and Uber basically have the same prices in each region, but something like Rackspace has a different price than Azure because they're going after different demographics. So what you want to do is just do market research on what everybody in your space is charging, and even some things if you are a beauty salon, you'll see that there are prices that are all across the board for that because they're going after different demographics. So it's just a lot of market research to do. Third row.
So even after a successful pitch and good investment, a lot of startups
So there are about 10 common reasons that startups fail. There's a great website called CB Insights that has a startup postmortem ranking. So there's about 300 startup postmortems on CB Insights. And the main reason that startups fail is co-founder issues. So like just interpersonal issues. It's almost never money, because you can always keep your startup alive bootstrapping. Like if the idea is good enough, if you're passionate enough, if like you can always find money or find a way to keep it alive, especially with websites now. Like unless it's a restaurant, because restaurants are just terrible investments, and I know that because my family runs restaurants. And yeah, I mean just money pits. So, but it's co-founder issues, and then you end up with IP, right, legal stuff happening. So that's almost always why startups fail.
In terms of the order of like building something, selling it to people, and making a business plan, does it matter too much what order you do those things in, do you think?
Of finding the money, creating the business plan, and then finding the team?
And like building a project, like do you create a business plan before you start building out the product, or would you start working on something to sell it to people and get an idea of?
So I would always create like a napkin sketch version of it first, like the business model canvas quickly, and then do an MVP version, not like the full-blown product. So like I do design first, kind of like a clickable demo to see if people are really interested, because I'm more of a designer now, a design-first thinker developer. So a lot of times I'll do like a Google spreadsheet version of the product to take people's like email addresses to see if they're actually interested in what I'm doing, and I'll put up like an Instapage sign-up page to see like, hey, would you be interested in this? And then I'll throw out a tweet to get people to sign up, and if they are, then I know that I've validated the product. And then I will start developing the thing. And if I got no signups, then I know that it's not worth even spending any effort in developing. So that's kind of the order that I would do it in. So minimal effort all the way around. And Lean Startup by Eric Ries is a great book to read to talk about that kind of thing as well. We have time for one more question.
Do you recommend software developers pair with business types at all? Software developers love
Absolutely. I was just having this conversation earlier today that software developers absolutely need to be paired up with somebody that has some kind of economic mind sense. If you are not thinking at all about how much money will this make, how will I get my money back, how much time am I taking on this, and how much does that cost me, then you need to be paired up with somebody that's actually thinking about that for you. Because you don't need to change yourself to think about that, but you actually have to have somebody overseeing you to, or at least somebody caring about the fact that you're taking all that time. But actually, we have time for one more question. All right. Yes, you. So the question is, when you find out that you have a competitor that you didn't know about that's in the same space, and it actually depends on the local laws, and also if there is room for two of you in that space, and how much you develop. So like if there's room for competition in the space, then it actually can be good to both be to have both companies in existence. And then, but if there aren't enough businesses for the two of you to go after, like if there aren't enough clients to support both businesses, then in that case, it may be better for you to both merge together and then be the best, to be one single company to merge, and that supports the clients better, because it's all about how can you best serve the customers, because it all goes back to that value proposition. And if you both have the same value proposition, then you would basically then merge together. However, if there is enough business to support both companies, then competition is always a good thing, like Uber and Lyft. So, all right, thank you, everyone. And those of you who ask questions, feel free to come up and get the book. So.